prehistoric grave. So there are 4 passage tomb complexes in Ireland: Carrowmore, Carrowkeel, Lough Crew and Newgrange. Now Newgrange is the most famous of these. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's the poster child of Ireland, but it's also the last in the complexes, so it's the youngest. And if you rewind a few centuries, Carrowmore is the very beginning of the passage tomb complex. Now how they got their name was traditionally from their construction. So it's a long interior passage into a 3-roomed chamber with a roof over it. Now as we walk along on the tour today, you will see that none of the monuments in Carrowmore look like that. Again, that is because we are at the very start of that tradition in Ireland, so everything's a little bit more basic and a little bit more hesitant, and as time goes on and as you follow the complexes, they just start getting a little bit more confident in their abilities. Who are they that I'm referring to? The Neolithic people, the New Stone Age, aka the first farmers in Ireland. So before they arrived, Ireland was inhabited by the hunter-gatherer people of the Mesolithic era, and they lived a very nomadic lifestyle, as you can imagine. They followed the food sources, they blended in with their environments, and as a result, we don't have a huge amount of Mesolithic evidence in Ireland today. Obviously more is being discovered as time goes on, but in comparison to the Neolithic people, we are littered with their evidence of their lifestyle in Ireland. They came by boat from France with their crops and their cows. They landed here, they settled, and they started living in permanent communities. So that nomadic existence that the hunter-gatherers had, that died out. The farmers came, they settled themselves, and they started to change slowly but surely their environment around them. So they chopped down trees and they started building monuments in the landscape that we see today and we visit today. So on that note, we will go out into the rain. I hope you have your waterproofs on and well kitted out. If you have any questions at all, please do feel free to ask away, and we'll lash on.
Now, these smaller monuments have many names. You might hear the term dolmen, which is a Breton word which means stone table. It's just a generic name for monuments like this. Passage tomb is its specific name, and they're also called, oh my god, my mind's just gone blank, sorry. But they're also called satellite tombs, sorry. So what this means is these smaller monuments, they all circle or orbit around a larger monument, like this one here just behind us. Now, that's not unusual. If you go to any of the other large passage tomb complexes, or indeed if you go up Knockdurray, it's not unusual to find one large central monument surrounded by smaller ones circling around it. And all of the monuments in the cemetery seem to orientate towards number 51, towards their central monument. And the smaller ones also appear in couples. So if you look over here, you'll see the remains of a monument, and this is the partner to this monument. So originally, in its heyday, the monuments would have appeared in their couples, all circling around the central monument. Now, I mentioned there about the modern excavations. Carrowmore was the subject of excavations in antiquity. A movement called antiquarianism was quite popular in the 1800s and the early 1900s. It could be said to be the forefather of today's archaeology, antiquarianism. Antiquarians were, generally speaking, people kind of higher up in society, landlords or people with money. And a number of them did come to Carrowmore. Now, it's important to note that the antiquarians, they did have a genuine thirst for knowledge to figure out what these monuments were, what was in them, who were they for. Unfortunately, there was a segment in the antiquarian movement who were more interested in what can we find in them. So much like the tombs in Egypt, the pyramids in Egypt, Carrowmore was also a spot for treasure hunting. One local antiquarian by the name of Roger Walker, he lived on the site of Knockdurray, and by all accounts he wasn't malicious, he was just a bit of a fool. He just kind of, he'd come with great intentions to find out, unravel the mystery of Carrowmore. But then he was a bit like a magpie. He'd see something shiny, ooh, and then he'd take it and he'd whisk it away home, and he'd kind of forget why he came in the first place. But by the end of his days, he'd actually, he had quite a sizable collection.
I'm in the Central Monument desk and I'll be about another 15-20 minutes here.
But he had quite a sizable Carrowmore collection, and that is currently on display in the National Museum in Dublin and in Alnwick Castle in Northumberland in England. You might wonder, how did half of it end up in Northumberland? Walker was a wee bit of a social climber, and he kind of felt if he gifted a few things towards the Duke of Northumberland, he might get better party invites. Don't know if it worked, but certainly the Duke of Northumberland got quite a few nice wee things from Carrowmore. Yeah, so any questions?
Did you say 300 BC?
Oh, sorry.
You said he was a what?
An antiquarian.
Well, before that, he wasn't an idiot, he
Cool.
was
Cool.
a fool.
Did you say 300 BC?
Yeah, I just
3000
wanted to say-
BC.
And will this ever be excavated, or is it protected?
Most likely not. To get an excavation license these days, to be honest, you need a big brown envelope. It's nearly impossible to get excavation licenses for anywhere in Ireland. And because as well, we kind of know enough about Carrowmore from the other excavations. Like if we dug, if this was excavated, we'd know what we'd find. You know, generally speaking, we know what remains would be in here. We know what items would be. You know, so and there's also kind of a movement in archaeology now, which I prefer, in that you have to remember these are people's graves.
Yes.
So people, there's kind of a bit more of a respect coming back into archaeology in terms of that.
Were these typically single, multiple family burials? One?
We'll talk a wee bit more about that at the next stop, but multiple, yeah.
So is there actually a passage under here?
Well, if you took the grass away and you put it back to its former glory, there would have been a passage. When we go to the next stop, you'll get a much clearer idea. Yeah, this one is a wee bit more humble looking, a wee bit overgrown. But the next stop, you get a better idea. Climax up Newgrange, a long interior passage into a three-roomed chamber. Again, as I said, we're a little bit more basic here at Carrowmore, so we have these two little stones that represent the passage into the chamber. Then we have 5 standing stones, which are these stones, and then on top of those standing stones, a large capstone. And if you look, we kind of seem to be kind of looking up at it. So it's on a little mound, and that is completely intentional and all part of the building of the monument. So the Neolithic people built a platform of dirt and soil up, then they put their 5 standing stones, a capstone on top, 2 little passage stones, and a stone circle all around that. Maybe even 2 stone circles if they were feeling particularly productive that day. As you can see, there is no stone circle, or at least the majority of the stone circle is missing. Again, man builds and man takes away. Over the centuries, Carrowmore was used as a quarry site, so we have lost a number of the monuments in the complex today, and the ones we do have lost some of their bits and bobs. But now it's under protection, and we make sure nobody's trying to take the giant boulders away. We'd have to be very unobservant to see people whisking stones away. But the ideas, and I know it's called Carrowmore Megalithic Cemetery and there are Carrowmore tombs, but that's just a very simple explanation as to what this is. It's more complex, would you say? Because we call them monuments. There's more occurring here than just coming and burying your dead. We do believe that the area of Carrowmore was a ritual area or ceremonial area. And the burial ritual that occurred here at Carrowmore was cremation. And quite a number of cremated human remains were found during excavations here. In one monument across the road, 32 kilograms of cremated human remains were found in just one monument. Of course, you are looking at about 800 years of activity, so there will be quite a lot of remains found here. But we have found remains of men, women and children during excavations here, which would lead us to think that Carrowmore was maybe, or at least at this time in society, everything was a bit more equal. Everyone was on the same footing because everyone had arrived here, you know, with this knowledge to build these monuments. So it was really everyone get together and there's more of a community spirit. A question we do get asked often is, are these monuments for people higher in society or are they for families? I don't know. There's no official answer on that. Because the remains that have been found are cremated, no DNA or anything can be taken from it to see if they were related or not. Again, we like to think it was equal. Personally, I find it hard to believe that they're not for family or for kin, simply because I find it hard to believe you go to so much effort to build a monument for someone you don't know. Maybe the Neolithic people were a lot nicer than I am, I don't know. But personally, I think it was for family, but we don't know officially. It could have just been a communal. It is a reconstruction. The chicken wire and the black plastic sheet can kind of give the game away. The monument inside and these large stones in the circle, those are completely original. So before excavations occurred here, only the top of the capstone was visible above ground. And there's a couple of stones in the stone circle, and everyone just assumed the rest had been taken away for quarry material. But when the archaeologists started digging down deeper, they found the rest of the monument, as you can see it here, and they found the rest of the stones in the stone circle completely intact. And they also found what's called cairn material, or rocks, which would suggest that possibly there was a cairn here originally. Now, whether it looked like this is completely open to interpretation. This was designed by the archaeologist and architect. It's modelled on Maeve's grave. Whether it looked like this or not, as I said, completely open to interpretation. So this reconstruction occurred in 2004, and then a few years later, my colleagues discovered something new about 51. I know, something that's been here for 5,000 years, and something still being discovered about it. Rediscovered, really, I should be saying. So there was a lot of speculation occurring here at Carrowmore about solar alignments. So, like, Newgrange's big selling point is solar alignments. It marks the shortest day of the year. So there's a wee window box, the sun shines through it, lights up the chamber inside. The government dignitaries go in and watch it. The rest of us have to go to a lottery, and it's a big thing. But it's not unusual in Passage to June traditions. Carrowkeel marks the longest day of the year, the 21st of June. Lough Crew marks an equinox, the spring equinox. And a few other passage tombs around the country also have solar alignments. But there's always a question over Carrowmore. We're the biggest, we're the oldest. Where's our solar alignment? Well, we had one, we just didn't know we had one. So a couple of my colleagues came out, after much speculation and debate, they had their suspicions. So they came out one morning at dawn and looked into the mountains here. So if you just look behind you, can you see the telephone pole in the trees there? Mm-hmm. And just to the left of that, you see a dip in the mountain, nearly like someone took a wee spoon and took a bit out of it. Mm-hmm. So we call that the saddle. And if you look closely, on either side of the saddle, you might see a wee point just kind of sticking out. Now those are, we call those the marker stones. And interestingly enough, one of the markers is actually just a huge lump of gneiss, you know, the stone that the rest of the monuments are built from. So on the morning my colleagues came out, the sun rose in that saddle between the two marker stones, came through the passage and lit up the chamber of the tomb inside. Now, as I mentioned, there's 5 standing stones on the dolmens here. There was again always a question mark over number 51 here. What's that stone at the front doing? Because there's six standing stones here. So always a question, what's that one at the front doing? Why is it there? That kind of upside down V stone is actually giving the light a shape. So as the sunlight starts crawling down the bottom of the capstone, that V stone is giving it a shape, a V shape, or like nearly like someone's throwing a spear of light into the chamber. But at the same time, on the other side, kind of a spear or a V of darkness is coming up to meet it. Now, this all is very interesting, but when I tell you the date they came out on, everything just starts making that wee bit more sense. They came out on October 31st, which, of course, in modern calendar is Halloween. But modern Halloween actually has its origins in ancient Ireland. The festival was called Samhain, and it was when we as the living believed the worlds between us and the dead came down and we could communicate with our ancestors. And the thing about the solar alignment is that's not the end of it. It will then start travelling across the Ballygolly Mountains over the next few weeks. it will stop over the witch's house for a few days, and then it will start the slow journey back again to rest in the saddle around the beginning of February, which of course is spring in our calendar, but would be it was the ancient festival of Imbolc in ancient Ireland, which would spring essentially. I think that's very interesting on a number of points. Okay, obviously they were farmers. On a practical level, they didn't have our calendar today, so they had to make their own calendar, and this was it. So around Samhain, expect everything to die. Times are going to get tough. Maybe we won't see through to the next festival. Sun comes back. Way! The calves are being born. The plants are coming back. The crops are growing. Everything's coming out a-okay. But even on a different level, on a more belief-based level, that light and darkness coming together, it stops over the witch's mountain. Who follows these monuments around the world? The witch. Who's the biggest symbol of Halloween? The witch. You know, she plays a huge role in all of this. So yeah, what's happening here is very much, it's a practical level, but it's definitely coming into their spirituality.
I think makes the exception to the rule in the complex in Carrowmore. So first things first, the geology. This is not nice, as in the stone, not as in its appearance. This is limestone, which, as I mentioned before, Sligo landscape is primarily limestone. So you might think, oh, well, they're finally making life a bit easier for themselves. They're working with what's local. Not so. This stone, we suspect, comes from the side of Knocknarea, simply because there's a large capstone-sized hole in the side of Knocknarea, and which means that they went out there specifically to get it, to bring it here for the sole purpose of putting it on the monument. So it wasn't accidental, it was all completely intentional. The other thing, obviously, is the solar alignment. And I suppose for a long time, the big thing that marked 51 out before the rediscovery of the alignment was the remains that were found in here. As I mentioned, cremation was a burial ritual that occurred here. I wasn't lying to you, it was. In the smaller monuments that have been excavated, cremated remains were found in abundance. Not so here. The remains were not cremated that were found in here, which means that in 1990s technology, we could learn a little bit about the people. So the remains of 7 individuals were found all in all. Male, female, and I think there's at least 1 child. And what's interesting here is that, remember, we're at the start of the passage tomb tradition in Ireland. So when you go into the bigger ones like Carrowmore, Loughcrew, Newgrange, it's not unusual to find a small amount of uncremated human bone in them. So a lot of cremated remains, and then this one small amount of uncremated remains. So that begs the question, why were these people treated differently? Are we starting to see this kind of, as I said, we like to think everything was equal in the cemetery. Are we starting to see this kind of, social hierarchy happening? Are they treated in death differently because they were treated in life differently? I don't have the answer for that. We can't answer that. But certainly it does beg the question, and was this the start of that tradition that will continue on in the others, that they would have this small amount of uncremated remain in this the largest monument in the cemetery? I'm just throwing it out there. I can't, there's no 100% answer. The beauty of prehistory, there's no solid answer. Everything's always changing. So around 2000 BC, the Neolithic era ended, and then the Bronze Age era began in Ireland. And the Bronze Age people also came to Carrowmore for the same reasons as their ancestors, to honour and to bury the dead. And the Bronze Age people came with a different belief system, and they kind of started, they had their own little works here in Carrowmore, because they took some of the monuments and they changed them around to suit themselves. When you go back to the visitor centre, you'll pass through 2 monuments. One monument, no stone circle, no monument. We believe that stone circle, that the monument was taken out by the Bronze Age people because they used stone circles for their ceremonies and their rituals. They didn't need the monument, so get rid of the monument. Well, hey, half the job is done for us. And we found jewellery from the Bronze Age, beautiful Bronze Age torque. We found remains of Bronze Age people. And then when the Bronze Age Bronze Age era ended, the Iron Age began. And they too also came here to honour and bury their dead. We found their artefacts, we found them,
And then when the Iron Age era ended, prehistory turns into history, Christianity comes, they decide maybe it's a good idea to start writing things down, and Carrowmore and its beliefs and the people who built it all start to fade into memory, and the mystery starts. On that note, that is the end of the tour. I'd like to thank you for coming and visiting us today. If you do have any questions, feel free to ask me here, or you can ask back at the Visitor Centre. Enjoy the rest of your stay in Ireland. I mean, it might be too much to wish for sun, but I hope you don't have more rain following you. Alright, thank you. Thank you.